Notre Dame, Ohio State, Texas, Oregon, Ole Miss, and more. It's time for the Recruiting Blitz.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal scoop. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football writer and recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day. Today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. We've got a lot of recruiting news to get to in terms of what's coming up. We've got recruiting news on a couple of players making decisions and players that I think I know where they're going, but we're going to start off with the commitments. And most importantly, these are really important commitments. Notre Dame got Tiki Hola, defensive tackle, out of Bastrop, Texas, 6'3", 303 pounds, picked Notre Dame over SMU. At one point, USC was heavily involved. They backed off at the end, or eliminated, however you want to put it. And a lot of other schools down south wanted him too. But here's the biggest thing. Notre Dame's got a really good class right now. But the one thing that I've said for years that Notre Dame just has to find a better way of doing if they want to be elite year in and year out is recruiting big-time high school defensive tackles. Now, I know, and everybody else knows that follows recruiting closely, that until very recently, Notre Dame wasn't a big fan of the upfront NIL money. I get it. Most teams don't like doing it now, and I think more trending that way, but they still had to find a way to get more D tackles, and they're the hardest position to get because there are so few. This is a very important addition for Marcus Freeman and his Notre Dame coaching staff. They're also in on a few other top defensive tackles, defensive ends like Drake Quinn at a Greater Atlanta Christian in Atlanta. I think that is going to be a very unique class to follow. And the Irish are also trending, there's that key word again, with Jonas Walton out of Central High School in Carrollton, Georgia, Florida, Bama, and many other programs like Tennessee and Stanford are trying to get him. And it's not over yet, but right now it looks like this upcoming Wednesday, Notre Dame is the team to beat. That's a big-time running back who recently ran a 10.64. So if Notre Dame gets Tiki Hola and adds Jonas Walton in the same week, I think you could give a big thumbs up to what Marcus Freeman and his staff got going on. They've got a top 5 class by pretty much any measurement right now, but that would be their second big-time running back commitment. And again, the D-line is trending in the right direction. Notre Dame has done their due diligence, and they're being paid off very, very well in terms of the commitments. One of the players that I don't think they're going to get, though, is Jordan Thomas out of New Jersey. This is one of the best players in the country, regardless of position. I think he's underrated by some of the scouting services. He's 6 foot, 6'1", 180, 190 pounds, and he is a student of the game. Technique is way advanced for a kid coming out of high school. I saw him at Future 50 last year down in Bradenton, Florida. Under Armour does a great job with their underclassmen camp. They call it Future 50. He was one of the young men that was fortunate enough to be invited down there, get coached up, go against elite competition. And I was there for the whole thing, and he did a tremendous job and stood out. And he has the right disposition. No matter what happened on the play before, whether he got a pick, did well, did poorly, same mental makeup on each and every play. He's going to make his decision on May 12th in the early afternoon. I'm curious to see if I'm right on this, but what little intel out there has been Ohio State, and I knew they were a program last year that was in on him. Michigan, I thought, had a great chance. Notre Dame was another one, and then a few of the schools down south like A&M, Auburn. He's visited a bunch of different places. His family's done a good job taking him around all over the country to see where he could end up fitting in the best. But right now, it looks like Ryan Day and the Ohio State Buckeyes are going to get him. And even though Ohio State has done a really good job of recruiting the secondary, I want to add a little something on why I like Jordan Thomas so much. Yes, he's listed as a corner. No question, he can play it. But with his mentality, his advanced technique, and the ability to play multiple spots, I think he could play free safety or nickel quickly. Like, not just a little bit of a trait this way or that way. He's just an all-around football player. Like if you put him at running back, he'd probably figure it out. He may not be the next Walter Payton, but he would help your football team. This is a very important recruit for a program like Ohio State. Plus, they recruit New Jersey a lot. He's one of the top programs back east. That's also important. Politics of recruiting are very, very evident here. And it's a kid that, quite honestly, could have went wherever he wants. So Ryan Day and Ohio State, I think they're going to get him. We'll see if that happens. But I really, really like Jordan Thomas. Very good football player. Now, let's talk about another program that's kind of surprised me in a way that they just continually take players out of USC's backyard. That's the Oregon Ducks. Dan Lanning and his crew has done not a good job, but an elite job, in my opinion, when it comes to finding D linemen. They've got kids from Oklahoma, they've got kids from Texas, California, in-state, Arizona, all over the place. But like, this is a really unique scenario, because at what point did they finally get caught up in the situation where kids don't want to go there at D-line because they've stacked so many? Well, Dan Lanning and the Ducks are certainly doing a good job. And it's kind of like Ohio State. If I'm right on Jordan Thomas from Bergen Catholic out in New Jersey going to play for them, well, I mean, they're stacking them, but that's how you win titles. Dan Lanning and the Ducks, they got Richard Wesley. Now, this is a kid that reclassed from the class of 27 to 26, 6'5", 250 is what he's listed at. And even though he was a sophomore last year in high school, and again, he's reclassing, this is a kid that I think can be as good as it gets when all said and done. Now, because of the age and maturity is a big deal. Like 2 years for a teenager in difference, like 18 to 16 can be a lot. Whether or not he makes an immediate impact with the Ducks, I wouldn't bet on that, but he's got the physical traits to do it. His horizontal movement, his ability to get off blocks, and his burst, those are some God-given traits that probably aren't going to be discounted by anybody like at the NFL level. Like, that's the first thing they look at, that burst, the ability to change direction, and he's long. He's 6'5" in terms of what he's listed at, so he's at least 6'4", and he's got some pop between the pads too. Like, he can hold off players and then play that run stuffing role when needed. Now, he's more of a pass rusher and all that, but still. The other thing about him being a player that should have 2 years of high school left, he's only going to have one, I think he will eventually grow into a 3-tech in Oregon. Again, they've recruited the edge well and D-tackle well. It doesn't matter, but if he can continue to keep his twitchiness, his ability to move laterally, Richard Wesley could be a very, very impressive player at 3-tech, and maybe he swings back and forth to strong side defensive end once in a while for the Ducks too. Really impressive guy. And again, it's amazing how Dan Lanning and the Ducks keep getting really good defensive linemen. Now, in terms of speaking about the great players at any given position and teams doing well, defensive back for Texas has been really good. I think that is pretty safe based on the last couple of years. Muhammad, a guy that I think is going to be a really good player this year, might be the best DB in college football. They've got some guys come back, but they've lost some good players too because they keep producing. Well, Texas got one out of New Orleans. I thought originally he's going to go to Miami. Hayward Howard, 6'2", 175 pounds, Edna Carr High School down there in New Orleans. Really, really dialed-in player. Good kid. Had a chance to meet him at Under Armour New Orleans. That is a player that Texas gets out of the Louisiana area that I can't imagine anybody not really wanting him after seeing him play live. I've had that opportunity. Changed my perspective of him completely. Like, he's taking a big step forward in the last year. He was good before, but like, this is a guy that's a top 100 player in terms of how he played that day. I saw him at Under Armour. We'll see how he ends up at Texas, but they've also developed DBs well. Really big pickup for Steve Sarkisian and the Horns. When we come back, we still got Penn State. We still got another SEC school. And we've got, well, actually 2 SEC schools. Even Brand Brown also picked up another player too. That is next here on the Portal Podcast. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're into plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and taking control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. It's easy to collaborate with your partner as well. Instead of keeping all your capital in different places, you can track your personal accounts, set goals, and more under Monarch Money without all the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Lane Kiffin and the Ole Miss Rebels do not seem to mind recruiting the state of Alabama. They've always found a few players, but they're starting to add more and more players that have a chance to make an impact. I went and saw Corey Barber this past weekend at his spring game. Even though he was banged up with a thumb injury, I asked him why, he's from Birmingham, like basically lives in Hoover. Like, why would a kid from that area go to Ole Miss? And he just looked at me and said, Ole Miss is a wide receiver's dream. So in other words, Ole Miss has earned it. That reputation that Kiffin has for the passing game, and I think it's pretty obvious based on Trey and some of the other guys they had, they were really, really good last year and the year before that, throwing the football. They go into Alabama's backyard and get Corey Barber Jr., a player that plays at Spain Park, one of the better programs in Birmingham and the South. Hats off to that program, by the way. They got a lot of young players too. I believe that this is a trend that's going to stick around. So Alabama, Georgia, Miami, and many other programs were after Corey Barber Jr., but he again picks the Ole Miss Rebels despite being from the Birmingham area. Really big pickup for Lane Kiffin and the Rebels. Next up, let's stay in the SEC, but give a shout out to the entire recruiting effort for Vanderbilt. Yes, Vanderbilt. Not one, but two commitments here recently that are pretty good players and guys that deserve some credit on their own. But I just find it interesting that it's Vanderbilt. Like, I had to do a double take when I saw they had a couple commitments here recently. But maybe I shouldn't, because they're doing better. And obviously last season they beat Bama. There's another key. And they had a pretty darn good season. But now they get Darrell Campbell, a 300-pounder defensive tackle out of Katy, Texas. And they also add Keaton Smith, a wide receiver, 6'2", 185 pounds. These are two good recruits that a lot of SEC, ACC, Big Ten schools were looking at, Big 12, et cetera, like P4 players, and they get them in less than a week. It might be time to start looking at Vanderbilt a little bit differently. I don't think they're a flash in the pan. If you keep adding guys like this, and especially with Campbell, it's hard to find 300-pound defensive tackles to go to Vanderbilt. It just is. That's reality. With their academic restrictions and everything else, that's impressive. So everybody at Vanderbilt, all the people working for the Commodores in the back office, the assistants, they're doing a good job and they deserve some credit. Now, Penn State, speaking of defensive linemen, this is another really unique scenario because they lost Jawan Sider, who I thought was arguably the best, if not the best, individual recruiter in the country. He goes to Notre Dame, and he has a lot of down south ties because he's from South Florida. He helped them in Florida, Georgia, and those areas. Penn State isn't hitting down south quite as much, but they haven't missed a beat. They really haven't, to be honest with you. And I'm looking at my list here and like, okay, this is how many kids from PA now? They made a bigger emphasis, nothing wrong with this, at keeping kids home. And the player in question, Alexander Haskell, defensive lineman, 6'4", 265 pounds, from St. Joe's Prep in Philadelphia. That is one of the most important programs for James Franklin and his staff to win at. They've got players every year. Ohio State and everybody tries to go in there and get guys. getting a good player like him, it's only going to open up the pipeline even more. It's only a few hours from Philadelphia to Happy Valley anyway, and it's in state. They have to win some of those battles there, just like they need to win in schools like Aliquippa around the Pittsburgh area. You've always got to find those prospects in the two big metropolitan areas in PA. If you're Penn State, they're doing a good job of it, and they're keeping kids home. Now, again, they're not going to get quite as many guys down south, but it doesn't matter where they come from if they're very good. So hats off to Penn State. Finally, let's talk about two more schools that they kind of go under the radar in some ways, but one of them shouldn't anymore for sure, and that's Fran Brown and Syracuse. Amari Go, wide receiver out of Richmond, Virginia, plays at Thomas Jefferson High School. Getting receivers shouldn't surprise anybody, doesn't me, as it relates to Syracuse. As a reminder, they led the nation, I believe, in either total offense or passing offense or both, but they were right there at the top. And that is a team that can absolutely throw it around. So don't be surprised if Syracuse goes and gets other players. I can assure you, the Richmond area is very heavily recruited. It's not like Syracuse was the only offer for this kid. They're getting players. They're getting a lot of guys out of Florida too. Syracuse is a team to be reckoned with. And to finish up, Joshua Sims. This is a nice pickup for Tulane. He's at a Pearl Cohen High School, Nashville, Tennessee, but he's going all the way down to the Big Easy to play at Tulane. They've earned a lot of respect too. Remember, they beat USC not all that long ago in a bowl game. They've had some good seasons, sent some guys to the NFL. That's a good program. And even though they're technically G5, they don't really recruit like it anymore. So hats off to Tulane and their staff. As a reminder, we have a lot of recruiting news coming up. What do I mean by that? Starting this next weekend, it is the beginning, the absolute beginning of the recruiting bonanza. May 16th, this coming Friday, will be the beginning of all the recruiting visits that will happen through around early June 20th, June 23rd, somewhere through there, depending on the kids finishing up their visits. This is the beginning of it, and there's going to be chaos almost daily. That's what I'm here for. That's why you come in to watch this show, and let's just have fun. Please like and subscribe. Please share this podcast, and above all else, comment. Let's hear what you have to say about teams doing well, not doing well, commitments, players you want to hear about, evaluations, all of that. I enjoy doing it, and we're also going to have some team overviews. So I'm going to talk about key additions with recruiting and the transfer portal. Oregon's going to be one of the first schools that I do, just as an example. But overall, there's just going to be chaos, and I'm going to do a lot of updates here on the Recruiting Blitz that I do pretty much daily anyway, but coming up pretty soon, it might be multiple times a day because there could be 10, 15 commitments per day at minimum on some of these days where big-time players make their public decisions. So once again, please like and subscribe. We will see you again soon here on the Portal Podcast.